When you hear the word artist, who comes to mind? Picasso, De Niro, maybe even Rihanna? But what is the definition of an artist? Let's pull up the Merriam-Webster definition for an artist. So with that being known, I want to focus on an artist who perfected his craft in two areas of the industry. April 24th of 1992 in Newburyport, Massachusetts is where our story begins. In this quiet port town north of Boston is where Joe Keery would be born. His mother Laura and his father Thomas would introduce their second child into this family. Keery would have a nice childhood, growing up alongside his four sisters, who he is forever thankful for and credits them into shaping him into the man he is today. Joe would attend River Valley Charter School for elementary and for middle, and he would go on to Newburyport High for high school. His love for theater and acting would be sparked at a very young age, attending performing arts camps. But it wasn't until high school, with persuasion from his sisters, to really go into it. So he would. He would join the high school theater team. After high school was a huge turning point in Keery's life and career. Joe would attend college at DePaul University in Chicago, Illinois, where he was enrolled in the theater school there. This was the first time that Keery was away from home and family, so it was a big growing stage in his life, like many kids when they go off to college. After graduating in 2014 from DePaul, it was time for Keery to get out there and try and pick up some gigs. He would appear in some commercials for KFC and Domino's, and he would also appear in the TV shows Chicago Fire and Empire. But it wasn't until May of 2015 when he would be featured in his first full-length film, the indie film being Henry Gamble's Birthday Party. It was good exposure, and it was received decently well. Although this movie wasn't a huge stepping stone in Keery's advancement, all the while Keery was doing these gigs, he'd have to make ends meet, working as a waiter in Chicago.
Where were you working before then?
I was a waiter.
Good.
Waiter.
You have to.
You have to, yeah. Waiting tables and doing commercials.
How were you as a waiter?
I was a pretty good waiter, I think.
Really?
I was a great waiter. I was pretty charismatic.
Okay, I like that.
And what I lacked in organization, I made up for in maybe delivery, I guess, I would say.
During his time as a waiter is when his big break came. In July of 2015, everything would change for the young 24-year-old. Joe would get the call being asked to play the role of Steve Harrington in the infamous show as we know it, Stranger Things. Keery was hesitant to leave the city of Chicago as he built something special there. His sister Caroline would give him the words of encouragement to do so, and that would end up being the best decision of his life. He would dazzle on screen as he played the role of the jerk high school jock turned beloved heartthrob so well. All the while, the first season of Stranger Things had the grasp on the world, Joe would be working on his other artistic love. Keery would join a band called Post Animal, where he'd play guitar and drums. His vocals would be featured on some songs as well. They released their first EP in December of 2015. Joe would be with the band for one more year, and they would release another EP in the form of the Garden series. The reason for leaving with the huge success of Stranger Things and the ever-growing role that he was asked to fulfill, Joe wanted to focus more on his career in that. October 27, 2017 was the highly anticipated second season of Stranger Things, and it did not disappoint. Netflix and the Duffer Brothers would have themselves a hit show, and it would just continue to skyrocket from here. Joe would continue to kill it on screen, and people just couldn't get enough of him. The character development of Steve in this season just made him a fan favorite. Even though he departed from the band, something big was brewing in the background regarding Keery's music career. July 4th of 2019, when we got the third season of Stranger Things, Keery and his colleagues would continue to amaze and had people glued to their screens nonstop. They were doing pretty well for themselves off screen too, with each of the main characters making a reported $150,000 per episode. And there were 8 episodes this season. So if you add it all up, they were doing pretty damn good for themselves. And it would only go up for Joe from here. 15 days later, after the release of the third season of Stranger Things, Joe would begin the release of his rollout for his first album under the alias Joe, which is spelled with a D, but it's pronounced Joe. With that came the first single, Roddy. After that came Chateau, and finally Mortal Projections, before the release of his first album. On September 13th, 2019, Joe would release his first album, 2020. It has 12 songs spanning 44 minutes long. He has a unique style of songwriting and performing, focusing heavily on the synths. It's a nice blend of the psychedelic pop, rock, and indie. He's relatively unknown on the music side of things, but that's how he wanted it. He didn't want people to check out his music because he's the guy from Stranger Things. He wanted people to stumble across it and appreciate it without any preconceived notions of who he is.
Yeah. Am I right on the disguise thing? That the reason you wore the disguise, the wig and glasses, was to sort of separate the emerging celebrityness or the actoriness from the musician? Is that right?
Pretty much. It was pretty much just to deflect from people being like, "Hey, Steve," at a show, or just maybe looking at the album cover. It was to, yes, try to have some sort of separation between the two, so that somebody who wasn't a fan could just discover the music and listen to it without any preconceived idea of who did it or anything, just to, have a clean slate, I guess was the idea.
So during the next few years, Joe would continue to do what he loved. He would release another single called Keep Your Head Up and do a movie called Spree. These were both released in the year of 2020. Joe wouldn't release music for a couple of years after that one lonely single. Understandably so, as these were crazy times for everyone, and the growing role in Stranger Things kept him super busy. But a trend you will see with Joe and his music career and his acting career, at least for the Stranger Things part of it, is that he likes to roll out his albums around the same time of the new season releasing for Stranger Things. And he would continue to do this trend. He would release the singles Change, Gloom, Figure You Out, and Half-Life for his rollout of his sophomore album, Decide. All of these singles came out in 2020. As mentioned earlier, alongside the release of Stranger Things Season 4, which came out in May of 2022. And the album would be released in the same year in the month of September. Decide, another album with a synth pop rock sound to it. Huge song being off the album, as many of us may know it now, and a beginning. But it wouldn't explode in popularity until around late 2023, early 2024. Some people would start to realize this is the guy from Stranger Things. But Joe would do a pretty good job of playing these two different roles. I guess that would make sense why he's a good actor. All the while he was busy acting and diving further into his music career, he would show up to some music festivals, notably being in Chicago for Lollapalooza, which was significant for him as it was home for him at one point. Okay, so now we begin the rollout of his third album. By this point, most of everyone knows that Joe is Steve from Stranger Things. But it's cool to see that he built a following without anybody really knowing who he was or that they were the same person. With the rollout of his album came the singles Basic Being Basic, Delete Ya, and Potion. And the official release of the album would be April 4th of 2025. To me, this is the best work musically he has put out to this point. Alongside this release, Keery had gone through a breakup, which this album was originally shaped around. But as we see, it's a mature sounding album all around, with the distinct sound of this soft rock, indie rock. Joe is very vulnerable on this and embraces the art of what music is, with more emphasis on musical layering and the mellow instrumentation rather than what we heard on Decide with the synth heavy sound. He also recorded this in the infamous Electric Lady Orchestra studio in New York, which he said was a blast. It was received well overall by critics and fans. In the r/indie subreddit, you have some users saying, "When you're having fun making music, the vibe really comes through. This is so good." I've been trying to find the right words to describe how I feel about this album, and the best I can say is that it feels like a love letter to music. I heard so many influences across all of these different eras and genres, from the Beach Boys to Thin Lizzy to the Cars to even Wilco, like a greatest hits of all of these bands and albums. The arrangements are so deep but immediate, and I can tell they'll reward me on even the 100th listen. This is so good. Thanks, Joe. So Joe was on his Back on You tour, which started in February and just recently ended here in October. And the release of the fifth and final Stranger Things season comes out on November 26th. It's broken up into segments, so 4 episodes will be released on November 26th, 3 on Christmas Day, and the season finale being on New Year's Eve. Joe Keery blossomed into a true artist. To be able to be a main character in one of the most popular shows ever and to have 23 million monthly listeners on Spotify is a feat that I don't think anyone else has achieved, and it's really truly remarkable. He's at the top of his game, and I can't wait to see him in the final season of Stranger Things and what he has planned for the future regarding his acting and music career. What's most interesting to me is that Joe Keery was able to separate himself and build 2 different fan bases. When you have a show like Stranger Things be as big as it is, you're often stuck or put in a box as an actor, as being known for that one role. But to Joe, that just wasn't it. He's done a great job in the latter part of his career, separating himself from Steve and building his following on the music side, showing people he is Joe Keery. And Joe Keery is a true artist. Thank you guys so much for watching. And let me know what you guys think of the career of Joe Keery. Let me know in the comments down below if you want to hear anybody special next. And be sure to like and subscribe. And thank you all for the support. And I'll continue to pump out these videos. See you guys.